Hola amigos, welcome to KeySpanish. I'm Alejandro. Learning a language can be challenging, especially in the beginning. That's why today I'm going to share with you some little known resources that will make the process easier and more enjoyable. The first one on the list will help you when you are reading articles or any kind of text online, and it's Reverso Context, a browser extension. Let's say you are reading an article about a man who has been caught with half a kilo of coke under his wig, and you are reading that portaba camuflado bajo su peluca, and you don't know the word peluca. You just double click on it, and they will show you the translation. So it's wig. And you can click on it and see examples of the word, as well as synonyms, and you can even hear the sound of the word peluca. And you can click on show more, so you have full access to the Reverso website with even more examples. Quite handy to make the process of reading much more efficient. And now let's move to something that will help you watch videos more efficiently, and that is the Language Reactor browser extension. You are now watching my video on my meal prep routine.
También lo puedes medir con esto.
And you activate the subtitles on the video. And you will see now
Pero esta jarra medidora
that with Language Reactor you have the subtitles both in Spanish, and below you have the option of having them in English. And you can hide that if you don't want it, but it's quite handy. And also the best feature is that on the subtitles you can click on any word like jarra, and it will give you more examples of that word. And you can also save those examples for later study and do many more things. You have also the transcript on the right of the screen, where you can see even more information, and there are lots of features. But mainly the value of this extension is that with any video on YouTube that has subtitles, you can watch them both in Spanish and in English below, and click on any of them to have more information on the word. Now let's move on to a couple of resources that will help you learn vocabulary and grammar. The first one is for vocabulary, and it's called Tatoeba.org. Kind of a weird name, but this is excellent to find example sentences on any word. In the video we just watched, I mentioned the word jarra, so you may want to look that one up, and you can see sentences here. Now, what's the difference between other sites like Reverso and many others that offer example sentences? These are much more simple, straightforward, and you have filters here on the right that allow you to, for example, limit the number of words. So if you are a beginner, this is perfect because you can limit the sentences to those that have a maximum of 8 words or even simpler, 5 words. And you can choose only that have audio. So you can say, okay, have audio, yes, and many other options. But the main two that are valuable for beginners would be to select a limited number of words and to make sure the translations or the sentences have audio. So be hay unas galletas en la jarra, there are some cookies in the jar, and you can listen again to an audio that normally is made by a native speaker, not a robot. The next one is probably the most used site among Spanish teachers, but it's not very well known among Spanish students, and that's a shame because it's fantastic, and it's Profedeele.es. On the homepage of the site, you can see to the left different categories of content: grammar, vocabulary, functions, culture, spelling. And let's see first vocabulary. And if you are a beginner, the first thing you need to do is to filter by level and choose the A1 level, which is the first level, the beginner's level. And then you will see lots and lots of content. What makes this site great is that the content is very interactive. It's just not fill in the blanks. It has lots of visual aids and sounds and exposes you to the words in very different ways and also to grammar points, and it's fantastic. It's only in Spanish, but you can use Google Translate to translate the full page, or the tool we just mentioned, Reverso Context, if you want to translate just a section of the page. And the activities, as I said, are very good. It allows you to interact with the language in many different ways. Some of them are designed mostly to do in a classroom environment, but most of them not. You can do them by yourself, and you have immediate feedback. Like, for example, tres baños. You type here and you can check for your mistakes and the right solutions. And it's really a great site. Again, you have vocabulary, but also grammar points and cultural lessons, everything you need there, filtered by level, lots and lots of content. Fantastic site. If you prefer to learn by audio, then you will love the next resource, which is called Language Transfer. And this is a course where the teacher guides a student through learning Spanish step by step from the very beginning. And he's using lots of cognates and other tools and tricks to make the process make more sense. And according to my students, they love it and they find it very, very helpful. You can listen to it on SoundCloud, and they also have a mobile phone app, so you can listen on your phone at any time. And there are even transcripts available that some volunteers made, and it's completely free. So you have now resources to help you with your reading, with watching videos, also a website to find examples of any words you may want to learn, and activities in Profedeele as well as an audio course. And let's dive now into my favorite resource to learn grammar for beginners. And in this case, we're talking about a textbook called Students' Basic Grammar of Spanish. There's an English version and a Spanish one, La Gramática Básica del Estudiante de Español. Unfortunately, the English version is a bit harder to find, but it's there. The Spanish version, you can find it on Amazon quite easily in mostly any country. And what makes this book different or better than others? And the first thing is that activities are more meaningful and engaging than in many other textbooks. For example, in an exercise quite straightforward about the topic such as the agreement in number of the adjectives in Spanish, you have here activity 5 where Jose is poor and Alejandro is rich. Awesome. Who will the beautiful Claudia marry? Have a look at the consequences of each choice. So we are saying that con Jose tendrá que llevar ropa barata. If she marries Jose, she will have to wear cheap clothes. But con Alejandro llevará o podrá llevar ropa, and the correct answer will be elegante. So you don't only need to understand the agreement of adjectives, use the grammar point, you also need to understand the context behind it, the meaning of words. Like con Jose vivirá en una casa. Pequeñas y oscuras will make sense semantically, but there's no agreement with the adjectives in number, so it's not possible. That's why you need to say pequeña y ruidosa. And amplia y luminosa is with Alejandro because Alejandro is rich. So you can live in a big house with lots of light. Compare that with your more typical textbook or grammar book, where you just have to choose between masculine and feminine in sentences that are not connected at all to each other, are pretty random, and you don't need to understand anything of the sentence except ropa. So, ropa elegante or camisas raras, but doesn't matter if you don't know the word compra or anything around the sentence. You just need to know the gender agreement. There is no need for focusing on the meaning of what you are reading or what you are doing. And the second reason is that explanations are much more visual. For example, when talking about the different past tenses in Spanish, they use these pictures to represent that with the imperfecto, we describe an unfinished event in the past with this picture, whereas in this picture is a finished event with the pretérito. Or also to describe the difference between something temporary and completed event, they use here one picture, whereas for completed events, they show a sequence of pictures. And there is more detail behind this, but again, it's much, much better than what other books typically do, which is to give you just a theoretical explanation with a list of endless rules and exceptions. And the two last resources I want to share with you to help you with your Spanish if you are a beginner will be useful for practicing your pronunciation. The first one is YouGlish. This is the site I used on my video on filler words in Spanish. If you haven't watched that, make sure to do that. That allowed me to show you examples of real people using words in context. So let's look at the word jarra that we mentioned before in my video on my meal prep routine. And you can see
jarra no le gustó y por eso no quiso el café.
So it puts an example from YouTube where someone uses the word jarra. You can click on next, See another one.
identifica como un embaucador, un estafador bobo que lleva colgando del cinturón una jarra en lugar de
And this is better than other sites like Forbo or just dictionaries that give you the sound of the word isolated, just jarra. If you see it used in context, also the pronunciation can be different according to the words that go before or after a word, and it's much more meaningful. So if you want to know how to pronounce a certain word, make sure to use YouGlish to see it in its real life use. And the last resource I want to share with you today is LingoClip. I mentioned this in my newsletter recently, and it's fantastic if you like to learn with music. They have an app both for iPhone and Android, but we are going to look at the desktop version or the web version, which is lyricstraining.com, just so you can see an example of what it does. So it gives you a song, for example, El Arrebato, Ella Sigue Dando Amor, and it allows you to choose different levels in the beginning. You can choose beginner, and you can play the video here.
En la azotea de la verdad, ella se peina el pelo, como se peina una diosa sin...
Yeah, so you listen to a part of the song, and there is a part missing that you have to type el
Se
pelo.
peina el pelo.
According to the level you choose, there will be more or less difficult words, and they will prompt you more or less times to write the missing parts of the lyrics. So it's a quite fun way to learn Spanish with music. Those are all the resources I wanted to share with you, some little known tools to make the process easier, especially if you are a beginner. And if that's the case, you may also be interested in my Spanish Beginner Kit. This is a completely free set of resources to learn vocabulary, including the most frequent words, cognates, some recommendations on flashcards, the best resources to get some input, language transfer, the one I mentioned in the video, but also many others, as well as grammar resources, advice to practice, study template, and other tools that will make, once again, the process of starting to learn Spanish much, much more enjoyable. That's it for today's lesson. I hope you found it useful. If so, please dale a me gusta and give it a like. And if you want to continue learning, you can watch my video on how to stop translating in your head, start thinking in Spanish. Thank you very much. Soy Alejandro, KeySpanish, y nos vemos en clase.